everybody, welcome back to Cindy's Crochet Corner. I'm Cindy, and today I'm going to teach you how to do the half double crochet stitch. In my last video I showed you the different sizes of stitches and how the half double crochet is just a little bit longer than the single crochet. So today I'm going to teach you the half double crochet. It is my favorite stitch, one, because it works up very easily, and two, I just think it's a fun stitch. I enjoy when I see a pattern with the half double crochet stitch. I get very happy. So we're going to start with a foundation chain, and I've chained 12. So in my first tutorial I taught you how to do a chain, so chain 12. The reason I'm chaining 12 is because I want 10 stitches, and in the half double crochet you always chain 2 after each row. So your initial chain needs to be 2 stitches longer than your project. So if it's 10 stitches, then you chain 12, because the first 2 chains are going to be not used. So you have the first chain, which is your hook is connected to here, and then the second chain, and you're going to crochet into the third chain. Now the difference between single crochet and half double crochet is just what you do in the beginning. In single crochet you just insert your hook. In half double crochet you yarn over before you insert the hook. So yarn over, and then you're going to go into this third chain from the hook. Yarn over again, pull through the chain. Now you'll have 3 loops on your hook. 1, 2, 3. And then you're going to yarn over again, and you're going to pull through all 3 of those loops. So it's very similar to the single crochet. The only difference is you yarn over before you insert your hook into the chain. And then you yarn over again, just as you would with the single crochet, pull it through, and instead of 2 loops on your hook, you have 3, and then you just yarn over and pull through all 3. And it's that simple. Now the foundation chain is the foundation row is always the hardest row of any project. So not many people like to do the foundation row. The rest of the project goes a lot quicker than the foundation row. But just get through your foundation row and get all the way to the end doing this half double crochet, yarn over, insert the hook. I crocheted my foundation chain tight, so it's hard to get through there. So finish to the end, and then I'm going to show you what you do at the end. Because in the single crochet tutorial, I told you that you need to chain 1 after each row before you turn your project. Since the half double crochet is a little taller stitch, you're going to chain 2 at the end of the row. So this first stitch is kind of hard to get into. So once you should have 10. So count your stitches. We have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, because it is a taller stitch. You're going to turn your project just as we did before. And this is where it gets a little tricky for beginners. Some patterns will say count the chain as your first stitch. If it says count the chain as your first stitch, then you're going to start crocheting in this second, let me take that out, in the second stitch. So here's the first stitch, there's the second stitch. If the pattern says do not count the chain as the first stitch, then you would crochet into this first stitch. But we're going to pretend that the pattern says do not, or count this, do not count this as the first stitch. So we're going to go into this first stitch. Yarn over, insert your hook, yarn over, pull through all 3. Yarn over, insert, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, all through 3. And remember, just like the single crochet, you're going into this top loop, you're going through both of those when you go through the project. So if you just catch one of those, then you're going to have a different look and your project's going to be a little off. If you go through the back one, it'll be a little off. So you want to make sure that when you're doing this, you go through both loops of the top. So yarn over, go through the loops, yarn over, pull through, yarn over, pull through all 3. And let's go to the end and I'll show you what to do on the other end. And it does depend on if the pattern says consider that chain at the beginning as your first stitch or not. And what happens, some people tend to forget and they will choose the wrong stitch when turning their project. And I'll show you what I mean. So we're going to the end and we're going to insert there. So now we should have 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Now we're going to chain 2, 1, 2, and turn. Now, if you make a mistake and you forget this is not going to be considered the first stitch, and you go in this second loop, that's when problems will occur. You'll get a sideways edge. So you want to make sure when the pattern says do not count as the first stitch, you always go in the first stitch. If it says count this chain as the first stitch, then you'll go over to this second stitch, and patterns will specify. It will say at the beginning of the pattern, it will say first chain counts as first stitch of the row. So remember, if this is the first stitch, skip that stitch, go to the second stitch. If this is not considered a first stitch, then you're going to go into that stitch immediately after the chain. And then you work it back the other way. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Chain 2. Now, there's 2 things you can do to help you remember. You can either count your stitches, which you can do. Count, make sure you have 10. If you come up with 9, then you know you missed a stitch. Or you can put a marker. You can mark it with another piece of yarn, or they also make stitch markers. Let me get if you mark it with a different color yarn, mark the end stitch as to which stitch you're going to go into. Then you know when you come back that that's your last stitch. If you if the first stitch is going to be the initial chain, then mark that stitch, and so you know that the last stitch you're going to crochet in is this stitch here, which is very tight. If they tell you that, if the pattern says consider that initial chain as your first stitch, you see how tight that is, then you'll put your marker there and you'll crochet your last stitch in that stitch in that chain. If it says do not count, if it says do not count this as the first stitch, then this will be your last stitch that you'll crochet in. So you'll put your marker in there, and to put your marker in there, you just, if you have a stitch marker, you just clip it in, and if you don't, you just pull a separate color yarn through there so you can see it. And then you know that, so then you don't have to count, you just go back and, oh, that's my last stitch. And then if you mark this row as well of your last stitch, then you know you don't have to count. You can just go back and forth between the marks. But that is how you half double crochet. I hope this video tutorial was helpful. If it was, please hit the like button and subscribe to my channel for more videos. The next tutorial will be about the double crochet, and we hope to see you next time. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.